Reverend Moss, thank you very much. Is there a time you can reflect and say, aha, I'm now going to be involved?
The passion was born of my childhood experiences. Mm-hmm. Sitting at the fireplace, listening to my father talk about what his father had related to him about the slavery experience, the Reconstruction, the Civil War, as well as the day-to-day experiences that we saw, and my parents, my father especially, in a more direct way, because he was going to work every day, encountering all of the insults, all of the naked brutalities of discrimination, some of which he did not share, but he shared enough for us to know that here is a system that is wrong, mm-hmm. and at the deep end of the spirituality perspective, it must be changed, and it will be changed. Mm-hmm. I entered college in 1952. The hero in America, and especially in Black America for African Americans, was Thurgood Marshall. Mm-hmm. When Thurgood Marshall came to Atlanta to speak, it was almost like a holiday. Is that right? Anybody who was in his or her right mind tried to get to the place where he was speaking. He was representing our future in terms of civil rights, liberation, freedom.
1955, of course, was Brown versus Board 2.
That was the feeling that Brown 2 was a step backwards. All deliberate speed. Nobody could quite define what speed is deliberate speed. Mm-hmm. And there was also the feeling, especially by those of us who lived in the South, that it gave an opening for those who were preaching nullification and interposition, a foothold to organize the reactionary movement. And we also felt disappointed by the leadership that President Eisenhower was giving. He never spoke out in favor of the Supreme Court decision, although he was forced, he had to send troops to Little Rock, but he gave no what we call moral leadership to the nation. And I think this also laid the foundation for the direct action movement and the nonviolent direct action movement that some of us became participants in for a lifetime. And until 1955, that was the path. But then, with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, direct action became the wave of the future, so to speak. And we were the soldiers in that movement. That's where my wife and I met. She was on the staff of Dr. King. So we were living this now on a day-to-day basis. I met him for the first time personally in 1955 at a National Baptist Convention, where the whole discussion was around the lynching of Emmett Till. Mm-hmm. And it was a few months after that that the Montgomery movement burst forth. And following that, there was a closer and a closer relationship with his family. I was in school with his brother. We worked together and really became friends. And this was prior to the organization of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And then years later, at the death of my first wife, I met this wonderful young woman on the staff of Martin Luther King Jr.
Dr. King married you.
That is correct.
1960, when Martin Luther King Jr. emerged from prison in Reidsville, Georgia, you were there to welcome him with a picket sign. Is that a time when he really needed support?
We felt so.
Yeah.
And that was a great moment. We did not realize how pivotal that moment was. I maintain that it was Dr. King's leadership and position in the nation and the world that shifted the election through the relationship with Kennedy and his release.
Did you feel the void when you heard the news? And it had that same sense of feeling of vacuum when you got the word that Martin Luther King was assassinated? Think, how could this ever be?
We knew on a daily basis that this was possible at any moment. And in some ways, those of us who worked closely with Dr. King, in one respect, facing reality, expected it. He expected it. But we did not want it to happen. We hoped that he would be with us as long as possible because he was so much needed. And I think we entered into a moment of bereavement that is historical. The movement entered into a period of bereavement. And we have not fully come out of that period of bereavement. Bereavement has many chapters. And Dr. King's death was a brutal blow to concerted action. The Poor People's Campaign has never been complete. And it was all geared to writing a new chapter in economic justice. That was brought to a brutal halt. So all of this we have felt and wept over and agonized through since that time. And in addition to that, we felt the tragic loss of a dear friend, one who had immeasurable commitment, one who was willing to die, one who also had great sensitivity, great sense of humor, a lover of children and family, and who would miss a plane on a telephone conversation talking with somebody who was going through some personal crisis. He was as sensitive to the person who cleaned up the building as he was to his executive
Otis
director.
Moss is a bridge to a glorious part of American history in ways that nobody else is. He's the transition from the 1950s and the civil rights era to the hip-hop generation that his son now embodies. Nobody can tell those stories firsthand like he can. Is that a correct statement about Otis Moss Jr.?
That's quite a compliment, a very humbling compliment.
What's the question I should be asking you that I haven't asked you?
Is the movement to end racial discrimination or racism over with the election of President Obama?
And your answer is?
No. Thank you, and I want to commend you for your leadership and Attorney Jackson's leadership and all of those associated with you for the Jackson Center, and hope to come back at sometimes in the future.
We'll get you back. Thank you.